Beneath the ash-gray sky of a nameless northern town, where winter never truly left and the wind carried whispers of forgotten names, stood an old lighthouse, abandoned, rusted, its beacon long dead. Locals called it the Hollow Eye, and children dared each other to walk past it after dusk. But no one spoke of the boy who lived inside. His name was Elias. Not that anyone remembered. Years ago, he had been a bright-eyed child with ink-stained fingers and a notebook full of stars he'd never seen, only imagined. His father, a fisherman, vanished in a storm that swallowed 3 boats and left behind only silence. His mother, hollowed by grief, walked into the sea one moonless night, leaving Elias alone with a locked trunk and a single sentence carved into the kitchen table. "Don't wait for me." He was 9. The town took him in, sort of. He slept in attics, swept floors for stale bread, mended nets with numb fingers. But kindness was scarce, and suspicion clung to orphans like frost. They said he brought bad luck, that storms followed him, that his silence was unnatural. So he left. Not in anger, but in quiet surrender. He climbed the crumbling steps of the lighthouse, pushed open its groaning door, and made a home among dust, broken glass, and the ghosts of sailors who never made it home. For years he spoke to no one. He watched ships pass in the distance, their lights flickering like distant hopes. He wrote letters he never sent, to his mother, to his father, to a version of himself that might have laughed, loved, dreamed. He folded each one into paper boats, and set them adrift on the black water below. None ever returned. Then came the winter of the Great Freeze. The sea turned to iron. Fishermen stayed ashore. Hunger crept through the village like a thief. One night, a desperate knock echoed through the lighthouse door. A woman stood there, her face gaunt, her child wrapped in rags, shivering in her arms. "They said you live here," she whispered. "They said you don't care." Elias said nothing, but he stepped aside. He gave them his blanket, his last loaf of bread, his fire. The child, a girl no older than he'd been when his world ended, stared at him with wide, trusting eyes. She didn't see a ghost. She saw a man. Days passed. The storm raged. And in that cold stone tower, something thawed. Elias began to speak, first in murmurs, then in stories. He told the girl about constellations that danced above the clouds, about whales that sang lullabies to lost ships, about a boy who once believed he could stitch the sky back together with words. The woman listened. And for the first time in years, Elias felt seen, not as a curse, but as a person. When the ice finally broke and the village stirred back to life, the woman and child left. But the girl turned at the cliff's edge and called out, "Will you come back with us?" Elias looked at the lighthouse, his prison, his sanctuary, and then at the distant glow of the town, faint but alive. He walked down the hill. Not because he was healed, but because he chose to try. Years later, the lighthouse was restored, not by the town, but by Elias himself. Its light burned again, steady and gold, guiding ships through the darkest nights. And on calm evenings, children would gather at its base to hear stories from the man who once lived in silence. He never spoke of his pain. But in every tale he told, the lost sailor who found his way home, the frozen river that sang when spring returned, the paper boat that sailed all the way to the moon, you could hear it, the echo of a boy who refused to let sorrow be the end of his story. For the deepest wounds don't scream. They whisper. And sometimes, the bravest thing a soul can do is answer back, not with rage, but with light. And so, the hollow eye became the heart that remembered how to beat. And the sea, for the first time in decades, reflected something brighter than stars. It reflected hope.